Hey, this is Sasha. Thanks for joining me in today's video. And what I want to share with you today is, does more money mean you'll be happier or have a happier lifestyle? So stay tuned. I'm going to share with you this insight. All right, so a lot of people that are interested in making more money, they'll think and assume that, hey, I'm going to be happier simply because I have more money. And that's not always the case. And I will share with you some tidbits behind money versus happiness here in just a second. But before we get started, keep in mind that we have a lot of great freebies on our website at MyLittleNestEgg. So check out some of those freebies and some getting started pages to kick off your financial life in gear. Okay, so if you're trying to figure out, does having and making more money make people more happy? And you think, hey, I might be making $10,000 a year right now. Of course, more money is going to make me happier, but that's not always the case. It does to a certain level. And the reason it does to a certain level is because when you look at general expenses, let's look at general life costs. And if we look at these and we look at things like your water bill, and of course, I'm talking about the United States or Canada in the meantime. Let's say your water bill or hydro, for some of you that call it hydro. You could look at also maybe your rent or mortgage. If you look at your car payment and insurance, these things are all very, very similar. If you look at food costs, electric costs, let's say heating costs, you can look at a lot of different things like phone costs. All these are very, very similar. So think of your general life expenses. For some of you who might have insurance. They become very, very similar at certain levels and points. There are some variations, like let's say you go ahead and buy a fancy car, that'll be more expensive if you're buying more fancy versus not. Food, if you shop maybe at higher grade level foods, you're more organic, again, it'll be a little more expensive. But overall, when you look at just the happiness level, and let's just take a look at happy versus, and we draw this on your money side. So let's say we go ahead and this is money of, let's say this is $100,000 a year. This is kind of $50,000. This is $200,000 a year. So what happens is here's your happiness level. Let's say this is like a 10 out of 10. This is maybe like a 5. This is maybe like a 1. So what happens is initially at the beginning, yeah, money does contribute to that happiness level. But eventually, once you get to a certain point, what's going to happen is that happiness level will start to kind of diminish. And the more money that you make, you'll have a diminishing level of return. Now, yes, of course, having more money allows you to go ahead and go more on trips, maybe travel, maybe, it allows you to have kids. Some people that don't have enough money, they can't even have kids because, hey, maybe they can't afford the treatments for the children to get pregnant. Maybe they can't afford, just the sheer fact of having kids, it becomes expensive for them. So they get too worried about it. And that part does create kind of this difference of some people that don't have money versus other people that do. It does ramp up your happiness level, but beyond a certain level, there's been studies that state beyond certain levels in 2010, that over 75,000, I believe it was Princeton, you guys can look it up, stated that the happiness level is very minimal past $75,000 a year. Now, I think it got revised around 2018, 2019, around that time, where now it's about $105,000 a year. Now, this, of course, relates to kind of looking at the United States. If you're looking at money levels depending on countries, it's going to be a little different. So if we look at this country by country, and let's say country 1, we'll look at maybe countries that are a little bit more poor. You might look at something like $40,000 a year. You're going to be at a peak happiness level, whereas something more like in the United States, New Zealand, Australia, you might look at something more like a more expensive country. You might be looking at more like, $120,000 a year to achieve that happiness level. And that's simply because if you're looking at countries that are a little bit more poor or where money just goes a lot further, the happiness level just ramps up because things are a little bit more cheaper. Now, food expenses and those kinds of things maybe are similar, but overall other things could be cheaper to have that great quality lifestyle. So you have to take that into consideration. So what should you really focus on if you want to be happier? Because just the sheer fact of making $400,000 a year. You have people that do that and their happiness level is maybe a 3 out of 10. They're depressed and so on. Because think of all the rock stars, the bands, where they're depressed, taking drugs, the actors, and they're making millions. They're making millions on top of millions. And they're still depressed and people still commit suicide. It's not that they're happier because they have more money. It's in fact, it creates a cycle and problems to the point that people want their money and maybe it creates more stress. So your focus, creating a little more happiness in your life, as a little tip, maybe focus a little more on experiences and connecting with other people. And this can generate a little more happiness with those connections, with experiences, things you've done in your life, like having trips or taking trips and having kids, or maybe just spending time doing things that give you an experience you can talk about, socialize about, and much more. All right, so I hope this gives you some things to think about and gives you some insight. So don't just constantly focus on money, 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 and thinking that it's going to get you more happiness. Yes, it does bring a little extra pleasure. It does make your life a little easier in some instances, but it's not that more money equals greater happiness directly. It's really indirectly that having a little more money allows you to do certain new things that give you those experiences or allow you to have a little more freedom, so that way you can go ahead and use that to your benefit to bring a little more happiness to your life. But eventually, after a certain point, you should be able to do just fine if you're selective in what you want, the specific things that you're looking to go after, and maybe the high-level luxury items that you want to spend on. So thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to check out some of the freebies that I have on my website by clicking the link over here. Subscribe to the newsletter if you're brand new, and check out some other great videos. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.